I had to rewatch where we left off, and I was shocked a bit about how far back we actually went. So this video is going to be a bit of a talking video. It's going to be a lot of like random footage and stuff like that that's kind of happened in between since we last made a video, I guess. So buckle up, and this is going to be quite a bit of a story. It's going to be a bit of a novel as to kind of like the progress to come to now. So last episode we left off pulling the fenders off of the front of the car because we had pulled the motor and we were getting it prepped for paint. We didn't get the fenders off last time, so I'm going to take those off today. Oh. How embarrassing, right on camera. Ah, shit. You know that meme where they say to cut the end off as sharp as possible for the next guy? I was the next guy. I didn't think that it was going to be such a long process, but it ended up being a bit of a longer process just because we had some problems with clips and stuff like that. So that was kind of where we left off. After that night, I ended up bringing back the wheels that we had on the car, getting those ready to go to Ronan to get them broken down. The faces needed to be repowdered and basically bring them back to like new condition. Before that though, Ronan, he recommended that I get new rings for those Volt GRCs because the rings that were on there were just plastic rings that somebody had DIY'd a long time ago. I recommended some guy in the States. He shipped over some rings for me and I was able to get those over to Ronan along with the wheels to get those repowdered, which is pretty sweet. So it's nice to have everything matching. There was a slight issue where when I crashed, the two wheels that were leading into the ditch were the ones that took the most damage. So those wheels were just completely bent and unrepairable. Luckily enough, I had a random pair of wheels that I was looking to do a front staggered setup, and I was going to re-lip those to 8 inches wide, but I have a spare replacement set that we were able to make a complete set with. So I got super lucky that I just had those kind of sitting around. I think that the wheels turned out so great, they just look fresh and new. It's amazing to be able to see them back to their former glory or even better than they were before, so I'm very excited. Ronan is he's got a crazy attention to detail and he's really good for doing any of this powder work or even like prepping the metal or making sure that it's done correctly. I know that the finish is going to be durable, it's going to last forever, and he's the go-to guy for wheels for sure, so I'm glad to be able to work with Ronan on that. So all that was happening, we were getting the bay painted. I ended up stopping into Seacraft. I'm in London and kind of making a bit of an opportunistic stop here. I'm going to go to Seacraft. They're the ones doing the dry ice and the hardware nickel plating on the Civic. So I also have this crusty old prop valve here that's actually a 4040 prop valve for DA. The previous guy decided to paint it, so I keep forgetting to take it over there to get vapor blasted. So we're gonna get it vapor blasted while I'm there, pay off the guys, and if everything's good for me to take in terms of like engine and transmission, I will be taking that today and dropping it off with Ryan over at Feel Good. Come along, maybe we'll be able to film at Seacraft. So we made it to Seacraft and we're just going into the old vapor booth here. We've got Carlo with the prop valve, and hey, he's gonna toss in the machine there for us, and we're gonna get a nice clean part right after this. It'll be pretty cool. It looks like brand new, yeah, totally. That's insane. Small. Cool. That's amazing. amazing. It's so cool. Like even like the nuts on top, they're like the screws on top are perfect. Crazy. All right, so that was really sick. We basically got that prop valve completely stripped and reconditioned and refinished in like 3 minutes, Carlos said. So yeah, that's some pretty powerful stuff. He's even talking about using it for polishing and using it to kind of get a good base to start your polish, which is actually pretty sweet. The place that we ended up using to re-nickel all of the hardware, the zinc is just too yellow and sometimes it doesn't look the best. So with this, we ended up going with e-nickel, and it definitely is something that's going to set this whole build apart and make things a little bit unique and different, because everybody's on the yellow zinc train and I want to do something a bit different, which is pretty sick. They also dry iced the engine and transmission. A couple weeks later, realistically, I can't remember how much longer, we needed to get all the parts back to feel good for the final assembly. The bay has been painted and we're basically putting the motor back in and getting everything completed. I decided which header we wanted to use. The header that we wanted to use was the one off of the original one off of this green car here. The one that was on the red car was in good condition, but I wanted to change it up, and I like the look of the header that was already in here. So I basically just polished that guy up. Made it nice and mirror polished, shined it up, and cleaned it up, and brought it over here along with a bunch of other parts. Also, yeah, I only polished the parts that you can see. Don't judge me. So we ran into another issue with the transmission, which is typical for stuff like this, is when we were removing the transmission from the car the first time, there was one of the bolts on the transmission T-bracket area that was extremely difficult for us to remove.
When the bolt's too long, giant spacer.
Oh no. And I kind of feel like when we finally got that out, it might have fractured the casing a little bit, and we ended up that piece of the case ended up fracturing off and breaking off when we went to reinstall that bolt, which really sucks. So that was another trip over to Michael to get him to weld that up and get that fixed up. At the same time he was there, he ended up working on the intake and getting the intake fabbed up, and we kind of went with a design that is pretty sick, I think. It's very low, and I told him to go for as few bends as possible. Basically, we've got like less than a 45 off the throttle body, and then where the intake goes down into the fender, there's a very little bend there as well. There's no 90s in this intake at all. It's fairly straight, which I think is going to be good. I've been told in the past that straighter intakes make more power. It gives more opportunity for the air to stabilize within the intake, and it's not swirling around as much, and it can have a bit more a force to it, I suppose. So that's kind of the thinking behind that, which I'm excited to see this new intake and hear this new intake when we get that thing started, but we're not there quite yet. So this kind of brings you back up to speed where we're kind of at. The motor hasn't started yet, and the car is still kind of in pieces, but it's generally coming together. We just put this guy on. It looks great. I'm really stoked to have this back in there, so making slight progress. I'm feeling like we should probably end up having this thing done in the next couple weeks, probably, and then there'll be another update video. So can't wait to have this thing home. We'll have to go get it tuned and do all that fun stuff, but bit of a talking video. I'm trying my best to kind of overlay some footage over top of it and, you know, make it a little bit interesting, but that's basically it. Little update on the EF, which is pretty sick.